Welcome to Good Afternoon Ghana. My name is Ania Fompo, sitting in from now till 3 p.m. for the analysis of what we have on the table. So what do we have to discuss today? It has to do specifically with vote buying. So the activities of vote buying has really been largely discussed in our political discussion on various platforms. It has been on Metro TV here, what we term as denied by politicians, confirmed by delegates, but, well, of course, accepted by the media. Because why? We cannot really do anything about it. But one institution that has the responsibility of educating people of the consequences of vote buying is the NCCE, because they have to educate you on your duties and responsibilities. So we're having a discussion with Ms. Kathleen Adi, the chairperson for National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE, once again this afternoon. Remember, she's come on the platform before about other issues, but today we're going to be based specifically on that. And then we'll get to know what exactly has been going on as far as our political activities are concerned. With votes buying. We'll be back shortly. You're welcome back to the program. It's Good Afternoon Ghana. And earlier on made it known that what's on our table is monetization in our politics. Some of them we have termed them vote buying because we have seen, heard, but they all still remain allegations, doesn't it, right? They still remain allegations. But we'll be talking about it. Let's welcome Ms. Kathleen Adi, who is the chairperson for the National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE. You're welcome once again, and thank you for joining us. Yes,
back.
Good to be. Yes, good to see you. Good to see you. Did you take any, active role, prior to this NPP presidential primaries?
No, we did not take any active.
We didn't embark on any education before the activity?
No, we did not. We did not, because I think that our programs have not been party-specific in that way. We do general education for the general public. Of course, I mean, it's not a bad idea. It's something that maybe in the future we should look into, because going into the main elections, we do work with the political parties as political parties. We do engagements with their youth wings and all of that, and even the executive and all of that. So actually, a point well noted, but we did not actively participate in that. I'm
sure we'll come into the specifics, but let's leave that for now. Maybe in the latter part of the show, we can, delve into how activities, went. I know you've been speaking on monetization in politics. What is the NCC considering as far as monetization in elections are concerned? What are they seeing? What do you see?
Right. For us, it's something that has been worrying. And at the beginning of the year, as we came into this very political year where there will be a lot of politicking, campaigning and all of that, the very first statement we released at the beginning of this year on 7 January, well, we talked about the fact that monetization is one of the threats that we see for the democracy that we live in. It's a threat to our society, and it's a threat, to our way of life. And I mean, we talked about it at the time because we wanted to raise the awareness and get the public, thinking about what we can do as a society to, expunge this thing out of our political culture. But it has, over the months, as you can see, back and forth, we see a lot of it. The most disturbing thing, well, maybe, but one of the disturbing things about the phenomenon is the fact that, in the past, it used to be rumors. You hear about it,
yeah.
You hear that, and then people will deny and all of that. Now we are at a point where it's done in the open, there's open distribution, there's active documented demand,
right,
from the side of citizens, and there's a public justification from the side of politicians. So it's almost as if there's such a big push to normalize it, to make it seem as if this is normal, this is a normal part of democratic practice. It is not. It is really abnormal, and it's really unhealthy. So that's where we find ourselves. Our job, as usual, is to raise awareness and then do some public education around why this is bad for us. You know, it may result in some instant gratification whereby, you know, somebody gets their 400 cedis, their 200 cedis. But what is the consequences of this practice? And that's what we want society to focus on, and then take a position around whether we want to continue this way or what we want to do to ensure that this particular aspect of our political culture does not exist anymore.
How does the NCC, to start with, define monetization? Maybe we in the media may have our own twists and turns to it, but how do you?
Well, monetization, define? I don't know about a definition, but obviously amounts to a number of things. One has to do with what we see when there's going to be an election, whereby we have politicians actively and their agents actively sharing money to, to citizens, to potential voters, and all of that. And where we see some sort of, you know, implied exchange of money for votes. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is the sheer cost of running for office. That's the other part that, you know, it's important to look at. It's become so expensive to run for political office. You want to be an MP, you need millions of cedis to be able to run a campaign to be an MP. I don't even want to talk about presidential candidates. But even, you can imagine that even at the level of local elections, assemblymen and all of that, the cost of running for office is going up, and it is an aberration in the democracy. It is possible to set in rules and regulations to guide how the kind of expenditure that people undertake during elections, during campaigns. Looking at campaign financing is one of those things that has been talked about over the period, and maybe because of the way things are, maybe it's a good time to actually hone in on the issue and see how we can restructure campaign financing guidelines and regulations, monitor, track, and ensure that only a specific amount of money is used for election campaign. The problem is that when it's not properly regulated, you have a situation where everybody wants to outspend the next person, and that drives the cost of the elections up.
But that's an electoral commission's work,
yes,
right?
It is.
To ensure the sources of finance of political activities. Mm-hmm. So does that mean that at some point, maybe the NCC would have to be collaborating with the EC to not necessarily monitor what the EC is doing, but also to get information if the parties are doing the right thing?
Yes, it is the EC's, part of the EC's mandate. And I think that what they can do, they do, and this public information. We do collaborate with the EC, particularly around elections. That's not even new at all. But I'm more concerned about what are the steps that we need to take together. And then also, beyond that, because I'm coming from the point of view of public education, I always say that you can put a lot of regulations and legal frameworks and all of it. It's great for a society, for a democratic society. But we tend to miss the important point of the actual people, the citizens of the country, giving them the education for them to have the right orientation, so that they automatically reject that style or that way of doing things. It will bring the whole thing down. If citizens were to say that, we are not assessing you based on the money you give us, the direct funds that you give to individuals, we are not assessing you based on attendance of funerals and social events and all of those things, but we are assessing you based on your ability to deliver public goods to the constituency that have elected you, for instance. Then politicians will change the way they behave, because at the end of the day, I don't think that politicians are inherently this really bad people or anything like that. They are rational, and so they will continue to exhibit the behavior that we reward. So the behavior we reward will continue to get it. But the other side of the argument is that why don't leaders take the responsibility of making the change first, taking the first step in making the change and saying that no, on principle, we will not distribute money for an election, on principle. But then again, you see where the problem is. It's a competition. And if that area is blurry, it's not regulated, then you may decide on principle that you're not sharing money. But your colleague or your opponent may decide that that is the way they can just get one step over you. So it's a discussion that a society needs to have together and make a decision about how to do this.
I'm not sure. It's like we're tickling ourselves and laughing. Oh, well, we shouldn't encourage monetization. The parties have a mandate to declare the source on finance and campaigns and all that. But they are openly flouting it. And nobody asks questions. I'm not sure what do you want them to do? Because we know that the parties would deliberately do certain things. We now create the laws to
regulations
to regulate
them.
them.
Yeah.
So if you do not implement, expect that they will flout it. They don't care whether there's law or there's no law.
Absolutely,
but,
because nobody has ever faced consequences
for
this
doing
before.
Wrong, yes.
And so obviously they need a deterrent for which the regulations were put in place. Do you understand? It's not effective because nobody, but this is a law enforcement issue, it's not really my area. But the point I always make is that if law enforcement is on point on every issue and public education is also on point, the matter will really die down very, very quickly. Because first of all, with public education, people have the orientation to desire to do things differently, right? And then because they are rewarding a different kind of behavior, politicians will quickly adjust. I doubt that if people insist that we are going to assess you based on delivery of public goods, politicians will insist that, no, I don't want that assessment. Please, let me give you money. Do you understand? Because it must be expensive for them. I mean, think of a politician, somebody who, may be out of love of community, love of constituency, desire, vision, wants to run for office. But the whole project of running for office, there's a huge obstacle, which is money. And so if you're not careful, you might find yourself getting sources of money that then become an albatross around your neck. Because I always tell people that the money is not free. It comes from somewhere, and wherever it comes from, it will definitely go back there with profit. It's not free money. You understand? So I don't even think that politicians are even very happy about the way things are going. They just feel like it's out of their hands, because if I don't do it, my opponent will do it, that sort of thing. So they continue in that vein. But I'm sure that if you sit them down and ask them, is this the way you want to be assessed? Is this the way you want to get elected based on money that you're dishing out to people? Most of them will say no. You understand?
We've had some discussion where we've said that politicians deliberately impoverish the people, and then so they can ride on weaknesses. But if you check Ghana's statistics today of literacy, we have in 2020, adult literacy rate for Ghana was 80.4%. And it says that adult literacy rate for Ghana increased from 57.9% in 2000 to 80.4% in 2020, growing an average annual rate of 11.91%. So the annual rate of growth of our literacy rate is 11.91%, which isn't so bad annually. But if you listen to allegations of persons who claim they received money from candidates who were running for positions, you wonder, does this person know the consequence of what he or she is saying?
Are you so you're saying that the people are not well informed or well educated?
Well, yes.
It seems so.
Yes, it seems so.
I don't think so.
So if you listen to them, some of them actually fight. That, well, we were told that we're giving 400, so why are they giving me 200?
Yes, we were told. They were told. If somebody has told you that they are bringing you money, and then you get the impression that somebody else, diverted the money along the way, won't you fight for it?
Yeah.
Yes, you will fight for it. So the solution will not come from one side. You understand? One, I don't buy the argument that politicians intentionally want people to be impoverished so that they can buy them. I really don't think so. I think politicians are rational. And that's why I always say that it's a two-way street. There has to be action on either side to make progress. I don't think politicians are some diabolical. Who are the politicians? They are us. The politicians did not drop from another planet. They are a reflection of our own society. They come from amongst us. Nobody imposes. Ghana, we've moved far ahead. Nobody's ever imposed a politician on anybody in this country in the last 30 years. We go out, elect them. You understand? So this idea that these politicians are these huge monsters, that is not true. And I'm very careful about that thing. But when you do that, you also make it unattractive for good people to want to go into politics. We want good people to go into politics. Look, we have elected to be in a democracy, which a multi-party democracy for that matter, which implies that human beings have to put themselves up, to be elected. So I'm very careful about that. I don't think they're automatically bad people. I just feel that they have been part of our creation of a system that is now working against us. So we can redo it. Secondly, on the education and whether people are well informed and well educated, well, really, it's a mindset thing. You understand? Because I don't think that it's
mindset that I think is propelled by the situation people
I don't
find
think so.
themselves in.
There are people who, are you telling me that only people who are poor take money from politicians? I doubt that very much.
No, but you see the
examples we see and hear, but how is that a reflection of what is actually going on? The one or two Vox Pop, one or two interviews that journalists go around, ask one or two people. That surely cannot be the truth. And so we have an actual study, But I do not believe that it is only a certain demographic that receive funding or funds from politics. I don't believe that.
Are you saying that as NCC, you are not going by what has been gathered by the media, maybe the interviews, largely spread interviews that we have collected from these persons who maybe vote as delegates for political parties or to select leaders? Are you saying that you don't go by some of the interviews we conduct?
Let me just say that just because there's been media interviews, that don't make a thing true or not true. What it takes is an actual study, which I don't know if anybody has done that, right? So just because we have had one or two interviews cannot be a basis for making a whole policy assumption.
No, but vote buying in politics in Ghana.
I'm not saying there's no vote buying or there's no exchange. I don't know if it's buying, but there's no exchange. Do you understand? Yeah. That's not what I'm saying. I started by saying that we have seen evidence in the media of money exchanging hands. We have seen evidence of people saying that they haven't got their money and all of that. The point I'm trying to make is that that is not limited to only a certain demographic. That's not I don't believe that. Maybe the other demographic may be smart enough not to grant an interview about it. You see what I mean? But until there's some study to show, I find it very hard to believe that it is only people, a certain type of people who receive money from politicians. I don't think so. But that is not to say that we base our work on that way or the other. We do public education for everybody. We don't say that, okay, let's go and especially target poor people and poor illiterate people, poor semi-literate people because, they don't know anything. No, it's not true. It is not true that people who are semi-literate or illiterate don't understand the way the world works, or just because they are semi-literate doesn't mean they can't reason, that they can't be rational. That is not true. You understand? Education is great and it's important, but when people don't have it, it doesn't make them, do you understand? It doesn't mean that they can't reason up. You see what I mean? Some of the things that some poor, uneducated people have to go through to survive, if you throw people who are so-called well-educated into that scenario, they'll probably die. They will not have the means. They will not have the wits about them. So it's not that way. And that's why I'm saying that I don't think that because of this interview, it means that only a certain demographic of people are the ones that receive money.
This demographic of people we're talking about are a representation of a party at large. And this party is also a representation of the society. Now, sometimes when these allegations come up, what the political party leaders will say is that, in the just ended NDC primaries, we heard allegations of former President Mahama giving money for transport. Everybody was entitled to about 40 cedis or something. The party came out to say it was transporting the people from one point to the other. In the current NPP primaries just ended, the same
thing, yes.
excuse and reasons for giving money It means, yes, money exchange hands, but it was for transportation, feeding, and you know.
mean
So I feel, okay, have we coined our law in such a way that it's evasive, such that if they come
the
out and say, well, I
practice
get
is
money.
evading the law?
Yes.
Yes.
I can easily say that, well, I get money, but it was not for vote buying. So what are we doing to ourselves? Are we putting NCC in a very difficult position to go and educate, to go and shout? But you shout for 2 years, the people still take money and say, oh, it was for feeding and for transport. You just don't know what are we doing. And you see, maybe you will elaborate on consequences of some of these things that we do. But I'm just clearly seeing that we are deceiving ourselves, thinking we are doing something,
We're doing something about it when
we
we're
have
not.
beautiful laws, but we do not. We just don't have any. We have laws, but we don't have laws. It's as simple as that. The way it looks, all parties can deny, and you can't do anything. And sometimes you look at the situation, you see that even in court, you cannot prove in court what the delegates are saying. That, oh yes, they were giving 100 seats. Okay, did they say that you use it to vote?
Is it in exchange of a
is it to
vote?
encourage you vote a certain way? And sometimes they go into the booth. What they are not supposed to do, which is clearly illegal, is to take photographs of their votes and then give it to whoever sent them to go and take. Do you understand? So it's easily linkable, but can you really link it?
So when you start to when you're building your society, you set up systems, right? Yesterday in another interview, for instance, somebody was saying that, oh, as Ghanaians, we can never be able to adhere to a different way of doing things, for instance. Again, it's a narrative I don't buy. Elsewhere, I mean, there are many democracies in which you don't see this votes where money, exchanging money for whatever it is. If we decide that we don't want this in our society, right, and then we take the needed steps to expand it, we can do it. We do a lot of talking about things, do a lot of talking around, but we can't do it. But if it's like this, then we can't do it. But if it's like that, we can't do it. I say, let's start. What needs to be done? We need to invest in regulations that actually, apply consequences that will serve as a deterrent. That's on one side. On the other side, we need to undertake massive public education to reorient the minds of citizens, to reorient the minds of the politicians, and to be able to let them understand the cost to them as individuals, to us as a society, and to our political culture and our democracy, the cost of going about campaigning and elections in this manner. Let's sit down and decide what are the steps that we need to take. So for me, that's the most important thing. We know what the problem is. We've seen the evidence of it. We've seen how people have tried to go around the law to be able to. We've seen the excuses being made. We've seen the demand being made. What else do we need? We don't need to overplay it. What we need to do is decide as a society, this needs to go. If this needs to go, what are the steps that we need to take? We take this step on this side, we take this step on the other side. So, and if we do that, it will work. Because we are human beings, just like the other human beings who live in other societies, who don't have to resort to exchange of money for one thing or the other before a ballot is cast. Other people vote in other places. They don't necessarily take money for transport. So it's not the norm. It looks like for us, we are trying very hard to normalize it, but it is not the norm. And so we must rather be fighting against the trend of trying to normalize this thing that we do. It's not good for the democracy. It's not good for the individuals who go into politics, and it's not good for communities, because if you are making your choice based on money that has been given, then how do you know that you are electing the best person for the job? You understand? It's not good. The entire value chain is a negative where this thing is concerned. So it can be good. It can be healthy for us. It is also dangerous because once the financial implication of running for office become high, you will start to now attract all kinds of money because, you need money to get things done. So you might attract money that could come from dark places. we are sitting down in a country that is currently being in a sub-region where countries are falling left and right as a result of coup d'etat, as a result of violent extremist activities and all of that. All these things, all these illegal kinds of non-state actors who do all of these things, money is a big part of their operation. They use money to infiltrate countries. They use money to sway people. They use money to sway politicians. So there are consequences for our very existence with this thing. The important thing is that we must, I'm sure that there's a huge, the discussion is going on now. But, we like to discuss and move on to the next topic.
We just like to talk.
Pardon me?
We just like to talk.
Let's
discuss.
Let's
have a conversation.
And move on to the next topic.
Let's drink tea.
But let's do what?
Let's drink tea.
But I really want to see a situation where when something happens like this and it occasions a public discussion like this, the discussion doesn't end at discussion. Yeah. But immediately we say, what are the steps that we are taking to ensure that the next cycle of elections, this thing will be reduced or will be expunged, but definitely will be seriously reduced. Well, what can we do to ensure that the next cycle of elections, when you interview people on the street, they will say, you know what, I'm not collecting money because I want to go and vote for the person that I think is best for the job. And I want to hear that.
There was one woman,
yes.
I heard her in one of our interviews, who said that, and I was happy. She said she collected money from Baumia, but she's going to vote for Kennedy Japan. And I thought, okay, so if you've been giving money, that's supposedly to influence your voting pattern. I like the fact that you are switching. I mean,
well, that's one way of looking at it.
Yes.
It's not the most palatable way, but it's also one thing, and we've seen that trend also growing, isn't it? From the same interviews, where people say, well, if they bring the money, we'll take it, but we have our own idea, we have our own minds, and we know where we are going.
Yes.
That's not bad. That's not bad. And you know what will happen? If that trend also continues, the monetization will come down.
Yes.
Because it does not become the basis on which one gets elected.
Yes.
You see what I mean? So if we also push that narrative, push the trend, that's okay. If you say it's just gifts, if you say it's just transport, if you say it's not really to influence, it's just to help me, I mean, who is going to reject help?
Yes.
Nobody's rejecting help. So yes, do bring it on. But the outcomes of elections must show more and more that people are not just going to collect money, and it does not mean that just because they collect money, all of a sudden they've lost their thinking faculty.
Right.
They can still think, they can still rationalize, they can still make a decision that is good for them and their future. So that is also something that, but ideally, we should be working towards getting to a point where people say, yeah, I don't even want your money at all. I've decided to go and elect this person. I believe in that vision. I believe in this program. I understand that these people can do this or this person can do this. And so this is it. You don't need to give me any money. That's really where we are trying to get to. But if before we get there, we get to a junction where people say, well, I'll take the money, but I'll do what I need to do, that's also...
Is that approach going to be helpful for NCC?
Which approach?
So it's now like the bottom-up approach instead of the top-down. Now, because in this case, delegates will now want to teach politicians a lesson that you give us the money, but we'll still vote our choice.
For whoever we want to vote.
Right. So that will help. That is not, obviously we have laws that is supposed to guide our procedures and processes as far as election is concerned. But since we're not using it and delegates are now using common sense, that approach is going to help you, NCC, in your education, or you're going to tell them, listen, collect the money, but vote for who you want to vote for.
Like I said, it's not my first choice.
It's not your first choice.
No,
so what's your first approach?
The first choice is to get people to understand what we are doing, how we are building our society. What is the democracy? What does it mean?
Yeah.
What are the consequences of doing things in a particular way? And get people to a point where they themselves will rationalize to a point of saying, I'm not taking money for this. I'm making a point. I'm not taking your money for this. Because that must be scary to a politician who has decided that, oh, well, these people, they just want me to find money for them. Let me find the money for them and go to bed. Imagine doing that for a 4-year cycle and coming back and they say, oh, I mean, we know you didn't do anything for us, but, you know, if you have money for us, we'll take it. Or maybe even better, you know, we don't want your money. We wish that you had given us the public goods that will ensure that we don't need to come and beg you, right? The public goods that ensure that there's good healthcare, there's good education, there's good economic opportunity, so everybody can rise. Those are the public goods that we are assessing you on. You didn't bring that, no problem. We'll find somebody else to do that for us. You keep your money. That is the golden spot that we're trying to get to. But like I said, people rationalize differently. And if I don't, you know, people have decided that, well, if you say you're not buying my vote, you say you're not coercing me, you say that you are not directing me, you say you just want to help me because you like me, there's nothing wrong with that.
So what will be some of the consequences of what you talk about as far as votes buying or monetization is concerned? I want you to be specific on some of the consequences that we're faced with.
If we continue in this trend, is that what it is? One, the politics becomes very expensive. Governance becomes expensive. And then we begin to give up the impression that it's a democracy for sale or for hire, you know. It's unhealthy, but it's also dangerous. And as I explained a few minutes earlier, it's dangerous because money obviously comes from someplace. And that money will have to return to, it's not free.
Yeah.
It has to return to wherever it came from. What are the implications of that money returning to where it came from? What are the implications for us as a society? What is the impact on ability to deliver public goods, for instance? You understand? So that's one. So it actually impedes our progress. It impedes our development because all these arrangements have to be made. That's one. Secondly, it's actually a threat to the democracy as we are practicing it. I mean, when I talk about democracy, people look at me as if, you know, but it's a very real thing. It's a choice we made. There are several forms of government. We decided that the democratic path is the best for us because we've seen the others and realized that this is the one that works. That's not to say it's perfect. That's why you have all these problems. Democracy is not perfect, but it's the thing that you must be actively working at constantly and consistently over time. You are never at a point where you say, okay, right now our democracy is perfect. We are no longer putting energy into, you know, talking about it. We're just, our society is fixed. We don't ever get to that point. You understand? So the money problem is a threat to the practice of democracy because the democracy is, the arrangement is to ensure that the best who can do the job come out and are selected, are elected to do the job. But once there's money in the equation, you may not necessarily get the best one way or the other. You see what I mean? So to that extent, that's the second one. The third one is the actual threat to our existence, the existential threat that we face now as a country where we are in the midst of a sub-region where countries are falling left and right to violent extremists and to, you know, coup makers, for instance. It's a threat because in that, you know, cesspool of activity around all these illegality, non-state actors, there's gun running, there's all kinds of unsavory things going on, but money is a big part of that game. And money is used to bring down, you know, democratically elected governments. And money is used to pay off people, to do all kinds of things. That can eventually lead to a breakdown society. It can eventually lead to us being overrun by violent extremists and all of that. So on several levels, the consequences of this trend, if it continues the way it's continuing, is bad for us. There's no good outcome in this. No matter how you twist and turn it, there's no good outcome in it, no matter what.
But we're not... You said you don't even believe that politicians are deliberately impoverishing the people. But there are other people who also believe in that school of thought, that politicians, you know, will not do anything to help the people, but do everything to cling on to power or to hold on to power, and that's because of what they get or what they benefit once they're in power. So it is, you cannot exonerate them wholly or from this situation that we face.
I'm not exonerating them. I'm just saying that human beings are rational. Do you understand? People make rational choices. You see what I mean? That's the first thing I'm saying. The second thing I'm saying is that we will continue to, get the behavior we reward. If people treat you in a particular way because you've engaged them in a particular way, if you continue to, do you understand? It's a self-rewarding system. So people will always reward. You will always, a behavior that is rewarded will continuously be repeated. Yeah. That is not. I'm not saying that politicians are perfect. Neither am I saying, and I'm definitely not saying that they are automatically bad. Because if they're automatically bad, who should go and do the politics for us to run a democracy? That's the bottom line. And somebody has to do that work, So the automatic demonization, I don't do that. If you find somebody who has done a bad thing, you call the person out and you hold the person accountable, that's fine.
Which is what we don't do. Because recently there was one of these former boss of one of our institutions, I've forgotten, who claimed that, in fact, there was a challenge of vote buying. And he said that if someone is going to use maybe 10,000 cedis to buy delegates, he's going to use dollars to buy, and you have institutions who are supposed to be supervising over comments that are illegal or that are inured to illegal practices. But we pretended we didn't hear. Or is it because nobody reported him to the police, or the EC didn't hear such a comment, or who is supposed to do what, But on that question, let me just take a breather. My producers are pushing me. I'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll get into that and wrap up. Welcome back to the program. It's Good Afternoon, Ghana. We're still in the studio with Kathleen Adi, who is supervising over NCC, and she's responsible for educating us on our duties and responsibilities. Thank you for staying. Let's have a Vox Pop, some interviews that we conducted on persons who alluded to collecting monies from politicians in the just ended NPP presidential primaries.
Oh, and your men come out.
I say he comes singing now, Mama, a DMB or my bear 400, no crack.
400 nedia Juma. Na minimum will be so dear or the buyer. To me, I 400.
Okay, so essentially what they are saying is that they have spent the money of the vice president and they didn't vote for him, although they have collected his money, but they didn't vote for him. Instead, they have voted for his opponent, Honorable Kennedy Japong. But let me get to them. Hey, Musi Mwedi, Dr. Bamiasika.
Now they thought say we will be influenced under money. Omudi sika be hye na so nyame adom ti yaje ba omiasika na eden edi yaje ba omiasika na eden edi acho mo say the right candidate I said in 2024 Kennedy ohene Japan. That's it. That's the final verdict of Gomwa East.
Now, Musi Mwedi Kennedy, Dr. Bamiasika, na Kennedy Japan sika did
and we were not concentrating on money. Yes, the country and to Abano, but Baumyankwa de Nisikana na Yashe Yajeri.
Hello, and the Bank of Ghana. And this Bank of Ghana to me a Mexica 400 Ghana cities. And the savings a low amount of Ghana cities. No more Bank of Ghana is coming a good channel. But me my 400 Ghana cities, no savings a lot of Ghana cities. Or said you are showing your tutor about the man.
And two patches second in Japan, Mamu 300, and about me, Mamu 400. And yes,
a brown constituency, and yes, cannot 400 Ghana cities.
Me Baumia 400 cities, not sorry. Baumia 400 cities, not the Bino. And Yamabufu. Because Niba Kukromoti Bako, Yaman 1.2 billion, the same Kokromotina, Missumiko Kromotina by Bako, Yamami 400.
It's your mouth,
because I was Sikana or the banning your mind is Sika, Meme tax Amitiano, and on our better, Canada da bon sika e yo no ankasa ni bottom sika ni moja ni obreye e na obetama ayen enti ye ni so.
And let me just say that this is not in any way to, condemn Baumia or anything. It's just an example of some of the candidates who collected monies from the camps, allegedly, and how it did or did not influence your voting. Kathleen, what do you think about this?
I think this is a reflection of the discussion that we've been having all along, that there are several elements to all of this. Obviously, people say they have received money. You can't, they say they've received the money. You can't say they didn't receive the money. On the other hand, we've seen politicians come out and justify the money. So the fact that money is exchanging hands is established, right? But we see a couple of different things, right? We see people saying, we took this person's money, but we will not vote for them. So are we going past...
It happened in Asing North recently.
Yes. Are we going past the point where people are taking money and using, making that the basis for their ballot? I think it's a study worth conducting to find out that are we gone past that point? Because it used to be, at least the anecdotes used to say that people were paid to vote in a particular way. But from what we are seeing, it means that we are getting past the point where people are being paid and that payment is influencing the way in which they vote. Are we getting past that point now? Is that a good thing? I mean, we need some further interrogation into that. But if for me, whatever the case may be, if people are beyond the point where they are making a decision based on inducement by money, financial inducement, it's a good thing. If they are making decisions based on what they actually believe and not financial inducement, it's a good thing, right? So it's open and it's worth finding out more about it. Whatever the case may be, where we are trying to get to is the point where people will say, you know what, you keep your money.
Yeah.
You keep your money. I believe in this vision. I believe in this person or this people or this whatever. And so I will go and cast my ballot for that group. And it is not for personal gain, but it is because I know that if the vision is delivered, there will be public goods for everybody. We don't want a society where we have people who are very, very wealthy, and then everyone else is impoverished.
Which is the reality
and then the
today.
wealthy that have to give money to others. We want a society where everybody is lifted up, everybody has a chance, everybody has opportunity. If a society that rewards hard work, meritocracy, and those kinds of things. I mean, sounds...
But in Ghana today, that is not the reality. It is
but it's something you work at. No, it's not sad.
It's sad.
No, it's if you work at it, it's not
who,
going to...
Who will work at it?
All of us. It is not going to drop.
No, you see...
Madam, let me finish. Can I finish my point?
No, let me come in here. There's a reason why we appoint leaders.
Oh, no, I'm not absolving leaders. I'm not absolving leaders. That's not what I'm saying. But as a society, we must all understand where we want to go and how we are getting there. You understand? I'm not absolving any group of people. I said we all have to work on it. For example, district level elections, my favorite subject coming up. Do you understand? Why? First, the patronage of district level elections is very low. People don't think it matters and all of that. At the end of the day, assuming that communities become demanding of accountability of their assemblies, will that not change some things? I mean, your share of your national cake goes to your assembly. They're supposed to work with it to deliver things for you at the local level. Look, if you elect your MP, they come to Accra. That's where their office is. You elect your president, is in Accra. That's where his office is. Your assembly people are with you. Hopefully one day we are electing MMDCs who will also be there with you as well. You make sure that they account. That is the first place that you feel the democracy working. Because there's somebody that you can point to and touch and say, this is a person who lives in my neighborhood. I know where they live. We have elected them. They work in the assembly. You can go to the assembly during the meeting and ask, so how far? What has come in? What have we done? What's the basis for making the decisions as to how we are spending the money that we get here? You can organize your community together. Call them. Come and account to us. Do you understand? It's a step. It may not solve the problem immediately, but there's nothing That will solve the problem immediately.
You see, when you, for example, the current Akosombo Dam spillage that happened, when you go to the communities, the information we have gathered is that then the local assembly there, when the announcement came way back in May that we're likely to, the VRA was not specific to spill, but the assembly put itself together. They went to the schools. They thought that, oh, should it spill and we find ourselves in a situation that we cannot control ourselves, this is where we want to identify as safe havens. The safe havens where the people are, it was identified by the assembly, by the local government. So they have done their bit. They moved the people. It was, after they moved them, maybe I think a week or two after, the government provided them with mobile place of convenience, and then he came to put it. That was just about 4 in number. The assembly can do up to, they can do just so much. There's also a level of leadership that's supposed to do something. If that level of leadership fails, what can the assembly do?
You won't let me finish my point. I started with the assembly. I said it's the first point where you get to experience democracy. That's not to say that other governance structures are not responsible. Please, that's not what I said. I don't want to give the wrong impression. I'm not here to say that it is your assembly is the only point of call for you. I'm saying that it's an important step that we normally overlook. And the way we overlook is that we are not even interested in who gets elected to the assembly. That's the point I'm making. But of course, our other elected leaders higher up the structure have a responsibility. Do you understand? Yeah. So that goes without saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just making a point about how to change this. The thing about throwing our hands up in the way and say, oh, but we are like this, and so that's what I don't like. I always like, what can we do? What are the steps that we can take? Everything can be changed. And that's why I always say that we are not different from other societies where things run differently. We are not.
So for the subject matter that we're discussing today, what will be the NCC's step going forward?
NCC is a public education organization. NCC will do all that we can to ensure that people have the right orientation so that that part of the equation is being addressed. There are other parts. There's a law enforcement part. The regulators have a part to play. We, as far as public education go, we will always continue to do the best we can with the resources that we have to ensure that, we contribute what we can to building the kind of society that we are all looking forward to.
So are we expecting some collaboration maybe with the media? Now that this information or education is rife, people are more conscious about monetization, vote buying, and all that. So are you going to be collaborating with media, going into the villages?
Coming
and
here
then like I earlier on, that was my first question. If you actually did a pre-education before the primaries and all that, you said you were taking it up as a suggestion. Yeah.
Yes. Collaboration is the way we work. I mean, we can, the mandate that we have can never be accomplished by just us. Part of the mandate is building, collaborating with people and working together with others to make sure that we all get the information that we need. Media is critical to the success of our work because everything I've said today, if I sit in my office and I shout at the top of my head, it won't go beyond my. It won't even go by the floor. Even by the floor, will not hear it, But being here is great, and these platforms are important for us. And that's why sometimes when we say, oh, we don't have resources, people just take it like that. But resource means that you're able to buy airtime, that you're able to, take media on tour to see what we do. We are able to engender different types of discussions because you're able to build more networks and all of that. So that's the thing. So that is important. The other part about
the parties, educating with the parties and the candidates.
Oh yes. Oh, I mean, honestly, this for the
delegates.
For the delegates the primaries and the delegates, we did not do any specific targeted work for them, right? But the work of understanding democracy and how it works. And part of that understanding being that money for votes can never take us forward is something that we do on a rolling basis. You understand? Yeah. But it is very important. Just the same way as when we are going to have the general election, we make specific arrangements for intensified public education for the elections. In the same way, I think that going forward, we must make special arrangements for intensified public education to delegates and other members of political parties who are getting ready to embark on a journey of electing leaders who will then come and lead the rest of the country. Yeah.
We thank you. We're grateful that you came through again. We'll try our best as Metro TV to continue supporting you as far as so that you can shout. You don't shout in your office.
Thank
for your
you.
floor not to hear. Kathleen Adi is the chairperson for the National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE.
Can I say thank you too?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so again, Metro TV is becoming one of our most faithful, big platform partners. Because at the very minimum, when there is an issue that is trending, that is topical, that relates to us, we always find a way to give us this free platform to engage. And we really appreciate, it's very important that I put it out there that you're one of the, more exemplary platforms where we come and we get the opportunity to, put the education out there for people to understand what we are doing and where we want our country to be going to. So thank you very much, Metro. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you. We hope to continue having this platform so that we can share with you in times of need. Right, my name is Ania Fampo. For those who time will allow us. Next is Entertainment Review. The team will take over now. Thanks for watching. Good afternoon.